There are people in this world who love with a kind of intensity that feels almost ancient, as if their heart never learned moderation. They give fully, immediately, without hesitation, without calculation. And for a long time, they believe this is their greatest strength, until one day it becomes the source of their deepest exhaustion. If this sounds familiar, you know it's not about being reckless or naive or too emotional. In psychology, this pattern is often rooted in attachment conditioning, the silent belief learned long ago that love must be earned, that it requires effort, sacrifice, or a kind of self-abandonment. So you try harder, you stay longer, you hold on tighter, even when everything inside of you aches. These are the people who answer messages instantly because a delay feels like a failure, who overthink every silence, searching for what they did wrong. They're the ones who apologize first, even when they're the one who's been hurt. They feel responsible for other people's emotions, forgiving things they know they shouldn't, pouring themselves out until there's barely anything left to stand on. And the painful truth is this: people who love too hard rarely learned how to receive love. They learned how to compensate. Clinicians call this emotional overfunctioning. It's when one person carries the emotional weight of a relationship meant for two. And this pattern rarely starts with a partner. It often begins in a childhood where affection had conditions, where love arrived only when they were useful or quiet or strong or selfless. So now, as an adult, their heart is still trying to earn what it never received freely. This is why the intensity is so fierce. They love deeply because they were once starved of that feeling. They hold on so tight because losing love feels like losing oxygen. And what makes this pattern so invisible is that the world often praises it. Society calls it being loyal, devoted, ride or die. But inside, it feels less like devotion and more like you're always running full speed towards someone who is barely walking in your direction. In trauma psychology, this is called over-identification with caregiving, the belief that your value is tied directly into how much you give. But when you love this hard, your boundaries dissolve. You forget your own needs. You become addicted to someone's potential instead of what they consistently show you. And here's the part no one wants to admit: loving this way isn't romance. It's a survival strategy. People who love like this aren't weak. They're just tired. They're carrying years of unmet needs, of unspoken fears, of childhood patterns running on autopilot. Deep down, they're not just trying to love someone else, they're trying desperately to finally feel chosen. But the more they chase that feeling, the more they bleed for it. The truth is, loving too hard isn't a personality trait. It's a wound. It's a heart trying over and over again to prove its own worth to others and, maybe most of all, to itself. And until that wound is seen, truly understood, and finally allowed to heal, love will always feel less like a safe harbor and more like something you must fight for. There's a moment, quiet, private, nearly invisible, when people who love too hard begin to break. It's not when someone leaves, it's not when the relationship fails. It's when they finally realize how one-sided their effort has been. This is the moment psychologists call disillusionment collapse, when the fantasy of, if I just love enough, they'll love me back the same way, falls apart, and suddenly the truth becomes impossible to unsee. They've been giving from a place of fear, not freedom. Fear of abandonment, fear of being forgotten, fear that without constant effort, their presence isn't enough. And so they overextend, they overpromise, they overinvest in people who offer only fragments in return. They convince themselves that emotional crumbs are a sign of progress, but deep down, they know they are not being met, they are being drained. What makes this pattern so dangerous is that intensity feels like connection. The emotional highs feel intoxicating. The lows feel like proof that the relationship means something. In reality, these fluctuations often reflect anxious attachment cycles, a nervous system chasing closeness while fearing loss. It's not love, it's adrenaline. It's unfinished childhood business dressed as romance. People who love too hard often misinterpret their own empathy as destiny. They see potential where there is neglect. They see softness in people who show little care. They stay loyal to someone they had to build a story around just to justify the pain. But here is the truth they rarely hear. The right people do not require you to shrink. Healthy love doesn't need rescuing. And emotional reciprocity never feels like begging. In healing work, therapists often teach something called earned secure attachment, the process of relearning how to love without losing yourself. It begins not by loving less, but by loving yourself with the same intensity you once gave away. People who love too hard must learn 3 things. First, your effort is not currency. You do not have to perform to deserve affection. Second, presence is not built through sacrifice. Real connection comes from mutual willingness, not unilateral effort. And third, you are allowed to choose peace over intensity. You are allowed to stop fighting for people who rarely fight for you. The truth is, you don't need to love softer. You need to love smarter. Your heart is not the problem. Your patterns are. And once you realize this, once you see that your love has always been too big for the people who couldn't hold it, something shifts inside you. You stop chasing. You start choosing. You begin to understand that loving too hard was never a flaw. It was a wound asking to be healed. And when that healing begins, something beautiful happens. You finally give your heart the kind of love it has been trying to give everyone else.